Hello everyone, it's Tana. Welcome back to the Rabbit Hole Designs YouTube channel. Today we're working with two more items from the latest release, Clarence SkyDiving and the Up in Flames stencil. And as usual, when I'm not showing coloring, I have my images already colored and fussy cut. And I have two cards for you today, one slimline and one 5x7. And today we're using Nuvo drops in creative ways. So for this first card, the slimline card, I'm using Distress Oxide inks and I'm creating a cloudy background like up in the sky. There's no land in this card. And I'm using kind of whimsical colors. I also wanted them to match the galaxy pattern paper because I had decided after I colored the images I wanted to paper piece the parachutes. So I'm using Wilted Violet, Prize Ribbon, and I believe Picked Raspberry here. So we have my itty bitty blending brushes and the Clouds in My Coffee stencil. And I have to say this is probably one of my most used stencils in my entire stash. Or should I say in my entire stencil stash. And I have to say it's pretty extensive. Anyway, I'm moving the negative pieces from the Clouds in My Coffee stencil down the piece of Bristle Smooth as I ink blend, and then I'm using the outside of the Clouds in My Coffee stencil to ink blend with color, because in those white clouds, in the negative space we created, we're going to put some dream drops, Nuvo dream drops. There's a look at the finished background. So now I'm going to line up the stencil itself with the proper clouds, and I'm going to go back and forth because you have to wait for it to dry. I believe this color here is Indigo Eclipse. I do end up putting them on the screen, just not right now, 2,000 years later, because you have to wait in between each application to make sure that the dream drops dry, because if they don't fully dry, you're about to see what happens coming up very soon. And then we have the Cloud 9, which are the white iridescent dream drops. See right there, my stencil stuck to that bottom cloud. I was trying to do clouds spaced out so I didn't run into putting my stencil into wet dream drops, but they still weren't quite dry, so I just went over them again with my dream drops and kind of spread it out with my finger, but I also kind of made like swirls and with my finger to kind of make the clouds stick up. Hopefully you can see that in the pictures. So after I have all of the clouds dream dropped, you could say, I'm going to paper piece the parachutes. So I've already colored these, but it didn't matter. I really wanted them to have this galaxy paper in them. So we're going to stamp out just the parachute portion of the stamp on each of these colors I chose from the pattern paper. And then we're going to heat emboss them with clear embossing powder. And then when you fussy cut out your paper, when you're paper piecing, you want to cut right up against or right on that black line so that all your pieces fit together and they're not too large for the space that they're fitting into. You also want to make sure you go around all your edges with a black marker so that there's no unfinished edges. I normally do that anyway because I fussy cut a lot. So it's kind of stuck in nature to me, but you just want to make sure you do that. So while those are drying, because I glued them all in place, we are going to glue our background onto a piece of purple matte cardstock. I cut the center out so I could, a mat of purple cardstock. I hate it when I say things all messed up. Then I'm going to take that inside that I cut out and stamp our sentiment on it. And it says Shoot Happens. And I'm going to heat emboss that with some Wow embossing powder. It's called Halo, and it's inspired by Catherine Pooler. And then I put some little dashes all around the outer edge after I cut that out with a rounded rectangular infinity die from Hero Arts. And now we're going to use embroidery floss for our parachute strings instead of the stamped out ones. So I cut all the strings off of the parachutes, and I cut some matching embroidery floss, some blue, some pink, and some purple, and I taped them onto the back of the parachute portion, And then we're going to, I glued them with my 2-way glue pen, but to ensure that they stayed in place, I put tape over them as well. So this is Simon Says Stamp double-sided 1/4-inch adhesive. And this stuff is super sticky, guys, definitely. So I put that on there. And then those will also be popped up with foam tape, so they're going to have a lot of sticky stuff keeping them in place. So we're going to glue our entire background onto a pink 4 by 8.5, 8 1/4. Guys, I'm like really losing it today. A 4 by 8.5 inch card base. Yes, that's what it is. And look, I even changed the strings on Clarence's parachute. So I kind of put the coordinating strings into the portion of the card that had that color for the clouds. And now I'm just kind of measuring out where I want this sign to hang, because it's a slimline card, so there's not a lot of space to work with using 2 parachutes to hold up the sign. So I kind of went back and forth a couple times, even though I didn't show you guys. Make sure my strings are in their proper place, tape them in place, trim them so they couldn't be seen. And then all of that is popped up on foam tape. The 3 parachutes and Clarence and the sentiment. So we're just going to glue all those on there. I put glue on top of the foam tape. I can't speak today, guys. I apologize. I don't know what's going on here. But I can't speak, apparently. Now we're going to put our 2 parachutes with the sign in place. And this was a little tricky, but I did do it. Kind of hung it there above and laid the sentiment in place and then placed the parachutes. Now the one string was a little loose. I just tucked it underneath the piece of foam tape behind the sentiment and put something heavy on it until the glue dried. And now they all look nice and tight, the strings. Moving on to the second card. I sound silly today. I'm using this, I already forgot the name of it, but I did put it on the screen for you guys. A piece of paper tray ink cardstock. And I'm going to do some minor ink blending. Not too much. I put some of this mustard seed down towards the bottom and up a little bit on the sides. Then I went in with the fossilized amber and went across, across the bottom, up the sides a little bit further than the previous color. And then I went up even further with the wild honey. And this is regular distress ink. Previous card we used oxide. This time I thought it would be nice to use regular distress ink. So now I'm for the first time going to use my Brutus Monroe stencil mat, if that's what it's called. And I'm going to go in and use the Rabbit Hole Designs Broken Glass stencil. If it's still available, I'll place it in the description box below, the link. And I'm going to go in with more colors. I believe it's Crackling Campfire, Carved Pumpkin, Ripe Persimmon. Almost the same ones I used previously, except there's more red in our lava floor and then the flames that go on the card. Now, I was trying to aim for this looking like the inside of a volcano that was about to erupt. That's why I used the broken glass stencil, and I think actually it turned out fairly well for what I had pictured in my head. There we go, candied apple, barn door. Those were the reds that I used and added in there. Now I know there's a lot of ink blending this month in my videos, guys. Some of you will like it, some of you not so much, but I promise it's almost done. After we do this, we're going to do some flames right above our lava floor, but I'm not really going to show you all of that. Just a tiny, tiny smidge so you could see what direction I was going in. So this time I'm going to slide the smaller piece of the same colored cardstock in between the bottom of the stencil, kind of like I did when I was making the waves with that other stencil in a previous video. That way we only have the top portion of the flames there, and we're going to create more of a floor towards the bottom, and we're going to go in with the same colors but kind of equal out the orange and the red and leave some of the yellow that the cards, that's the reason I use the cardstock. So some of that yellow will remain, not much of it, but some of it. And this is what I came up with for the final result. I did do some of the smaller flames as well, but I did not end up using them in this card. So I'm going to use a piece of scrap paper here and put it at the bottom of my stencil so I don't interfere with my lava floor. And this is what I came up with. See, I told you, not too much more card or ink blending, sorry. And here's all my flames fussy cut out. And I have that big, large flame popped up on foam tape. And now we're going to work some magic with some Nuvo stone drops. I listed the colors on the screen for you. I did not mention the gold because I didn't end up using it. So first I'm going to go in and spread some boulder gray there across where the flames and the ground or the lava floor meet. Then I'm going to go in with the plum slate. I don't know why, call me crazy, but I thought the plum slate along with the fiery volcano color would go well for the type of look I was looking for and color. Now, I have to admit, when I first put the stone drops on, when they were wet, I did not like it. I was thinking, I just made a huge mistake. But I went in, I tried my finger first, I didn't like the way that looked. So I went in with a palette knife, and 2,000 years later, when it was all dry, this is what we ended up with. And I do like the way it looks. I'm very happy I did it. So that was my second creative way to use Nuvo drops. Now we're going to stamp our sentiment right in the upper left-hand corner, straight onto our panel in just black ink, nice and simple. And watch this. So I'm taking off my sticky mat and it flips off. Came so close to hitting that still inked up sentiment. That would have sucked, guys, like big time, after all the work on that card panel. So I had to keep it in and show you. So here I have my foam tape, added some glue to that, and I placed it onto the bottom of the card just by lining it up, standing up on my glass mat. Now we're going to add Clarence, popped up on foam tape in the upper right hand corner there. Poor Clarence. I've seen some of the design team's cards. Let me say, Clarence ends up in the fire quite a bit this month. And then we're going to use the Scarlet Organza Satin Effect mirrored cardstock as a frame for our front card panel. Put it on a white 5x7 card base. And then I'm going to add some more red stone drops into the corners where the flames do not meet the edges of the card. And then along the bottom. And you'll get a look at that in the final card pictures. And that's it for this video, guys. I hope you guys liked what you saw here today. I hope this inspires you to use your release and your dream drops or new stone drops or any Nuvo drops you have in creative ways. Don't forget to check out the Rabbit Hole Designs email for news on the latest releases. And don't forget to check out the design team throughout the month on Instagram to see all their inspiration all month long. And we'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye for now.